some kind of work. But if you work for yourself, you must accept the karmic reactions of that work. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gita 3.9, work done as a service for Vishnu, Krishna, has to be performed. Otherwise, work binds one to the material world. You needn't change your occupation, except if you're now engaged in a sinful job, such as working as a butcher or bartender. If you're a writer, write for Krishna. If you're an artist, create for Krishna. If you're a secretary, type for Krishna. You may also directly help the temple in your spare time. You should sacrifice some of the fruits of your work by contributing a portion of your earnings to help maintain the temple and propagate Krishna consciousness. Some devotees living outside the temple buy Hare Krishna literature and distribute it to their friends and associates, or they engage in a variety of services at the temple. There's also a wide network of devotees who gather each other's home for chanting, worship, and study. In Zen Buddhism, there's a idea of right livelihood that you shouldn't be essentially doing something immoral or contributing to violence and this sort of thing, or intoxicants. You shouldn't be working alcohol, tobacco, drugs, that sort of thing. You shouldn't be promoting that. I agree. I think you have to do something. You have to work for somebody or yourself. Ramakrishna says something like worldly achievements are like zeros. They only have value if you place a number one, God or the self in front of them. Without that one, no matter how many zeros of fame and money you add up, the total value remains zero. And I think that's a great book. The Gospel Ramakrishna has a lot of stuff like this. Work ties into this, having the one out front, because you can do all this work, but if you're just trying to achieve worldly gains with money, it doesn't even make logical sense. If you whether you believe in God or not, working so hard. We're gonna die anyway. You can't take it with you. King Tut has all the gold in the pyramid, but he couldn't take it with him. So it's all of it. This is one of the best quotes. It's zero. All this worldly stuff at the end of the day, it only has value for the moment. So there's a lot of minimalists, and I'm kind of becoming one too, where you just get your basic needs met, because anything outside of that, if you're working so hard to have the nice things, or what you believe are the nice things. It's not, you're giving up so much of your soul in these jobs, and you're not really getting much but these physical things. I've always felt that way. I value my time more than anything else, because you can't make more time. Like the time passes and then it's gone. So I don't really like exchanging my time for work. Obviously you have to some degree, but I don't like the long hours. I don't like this sort of stuff. I mean, for myself right now, I've been kind of abused with the long hours for the last 8 years or so in consulting, just long hours, 24 plus hour shifts. I think there's some shifts that work 36 hours. And it just, I am forced to, because I'm karmically tied. There's outcomes that I'm required to do. And if I lose this job, I have lots of other problems. And so I'm kind of like forced into kind of proverbial indentured servitude slash slavery, where I have no choice but to continue. But I'm trying to get out of that rat race. I have child support that I have to pay. So I kind of can't quit, and I have to make a certain amount of income or else I'm kind of screwed over. So I'm kind of in this weird spot. So I'm trying to clear all that and get to a point where I can just work less and have more time to spend with my son, and just to not have to be doing pursuing worldly pursuits and just kind of focus on spiritual practice. And I really don't need much, you know, food, water, shelter. The car in America, I kind of find is a big thing that's needed, especially if you have a special needs son. You kind of have to, you need a car, unfortunately, because like life in the US without a car, you basically need to be by yourself. Like if I had no child, I could probably get away if my car broke down of not getting another one. I could just, you know, rent a car occasionally, or Uber it around. But with a child, especially, I think you have any kids at all, there's too many appointments, there's too many things that can come up. And even with work in the US, it's getting less remote now. So it's like without the car, you're kind of hamstringing yourself if you need to get to work. Um, and that's the thing. The worldly achievements, I don't really view as valuable. I've always felt that way. I couldn't put my finger on it all these years. I remember I used to be lazy years ago, and I never understood why. I kind of joke with myself of like a lot of the things I did as like a teen and young adult and in my 20s, I was like doing for the wrong reasons. I was a vegetarian, but it was more I was vegetarian for 6, 7 years, but it was more because I felt bad for the animals. And now I'm more of a vegetarian just for like spiritual pursuits and just kind of digestion even. And it's like a lot of the things I did in the past were the right thing for the wrong reason, kind of the karmic outcomes where karma doesn't matter, really intent a lot of times just the right outcome. But now I'm kind of doing things in the for the right way. And I kind of was always a minimalist. I was always cheap. I didn't understand why. I kind of just didn't like having to work so hard for so little in a way. And now that I'm making more, I'm kind of back to that. It's like I don't really want to work that much because I don't see the end game. Like if we lived forever, like on this 3D world, oh yeah, like making a lot of money would make sense because if you don't have an expiry date, you're not going to die. You might as well just keep working and work. You might as well build yourself up because you have to provide for yourself forever. But you can get murdered or run over by a bus on a random day. So all this can be gone in a second. So I just don't see the value so much of working so hard anymore. I mean, obviously to take care of your responsibilities. And one of the guys I follow always says, like, just work hard enough to fund your lifestyle. And I've had a lot of trouble with that because I kind of find, my brother does a little bit of this of like just barely working enough to fund your lifestyle. I had some years of that, but the problem with that I find is that inevitably a problem comes up that requires a lot of money and you weren't expecting, it's outside of the budget, and then you're screwed over. Then you end up working more than you have to. So I've kind of taken a different approach over the last 10, 15 years where I like to have a nest egg. I like to have more money than I need. So if there was a problem, I remember I had a problem with my car about 4 grand to fix. I had the 4 grand saved, and it was didn't hurt me that bad because I have a big savings now because of that. I don't want to be in positions where, well, now I need to work the overtime or I need a second job to pay something off. So it's weird in this 3D world of like you have to work hard and then you also have to have a rainy day fund, but then you're also going to die someday. So it's like one of my other videos I talk about, it's kind of like the joke is the person that dies with the most debt won. So at the end of the day, you can't take anything with you anyway. So it's really a tough spot with work. I've always struggled, and I was watching a video once, and it was going to explain like what to do about work. And of course, the video got pulled. I never heard the answer. I've been struggling a long time, but I think I'm figuring it out as I'm getting older now, where it's like this, you know, you could have all these zeros, you could have a million zeros, but no one in front of it was not for God, not for spiritual development. All these wins mean nothing. And you see that a lot of these rich people, they end up drug addicts and dead from the drug addiction, or they get arrested, or some crazy these celebrities that have so much money, like these pedo PDF files. Um, they start doing all this crazy stuff, and it's like, man, if I had like millions of dollars, I would just chill. Like no one would even know I had the money. Like I would just kind of live more. And that, even right now, like my lifestyle, how I live, isn't much different than I lived 20 years ago in a way. Like I don't spend a lot of money, so I've been able to save a lot just because I don't really need that much. And especially over the last few years, as I've been trying to work less, I've been kind of down, seeing, COVID really helped, honestly. But I used to go out to eat a lot, especially restaurants. I used to like going to restaurants. And then it was like during COVID, it was like you couldn't go out to eat. And then I started cooking more and eating more of the diet I like. And now, honestly, I don't even like to go out to eat hardly anymore because usually they don't have the foods I like. It's like I kind of eat a very strict, mostly vegetarian diet, and so in like a low fat diet now too, generally. And the food that's out there, it's like too greasy. I don't know what's in it. I don't want sugar and stuff. I don't want gluten items. I don't want, a bunch of fatty meat. I kind of want to know what the ingredients are. And when I make my own food, I can read the labels and I know exactly what's going into it. I don't want a ton of salt. I want, the things I want. I don't want a bunch of stuff that, even on vacation, it's like I don't even like going on vacation that much anymore. If there's not good places to eat around because I don't it's hard for me to eat the way that I prefer to eat when I'm on vacation because the restaurants, even their quote unquote healthy food, or you have to go to like a Walgreens, like I kind of get it now when people get the like kitchen on vacation, they get the condo, they get the Airbnb. I kind of get it now. It's like I don't really like having to eat that kind of fast food lifestyle or, oh, and I worked in the restaurant industry. Everything's from Cisco Foods. Like all the food, I always joke. It's like people think they're getting the high-end food. It's like all the same cuts of meat, and it's helped me too because when I'm in Vegas or somewhere like that, I know the food is the same cuts of meat, so I can just go to the cheaper place. It's the same stuff. People don't realize that. And I do like the line here, if you're a writer, write for Krishna. If you're an artist, create for Krishna. If you're a secretary, type for Krishna. It's kind of like if you're gonna have to do the work, do it with that kind of Christ consciousness. Do it from a place of love for the universe. Do it for a place of kind of worship in a way and like in gratitude for being alive. For me, for many years too, I kind of like struggled with that. I felt, when things would go wrong or I would be mistreated, it's like life's so unfair. This is it's all BS. Like, why do I have to work so hard? And then now I'm kind of like, if you have that God focus, you have that one in front of the zeros, there's like a reason for it. And so a lot of what's helped me, I think, over the last 8 years, especially, is like, building a nest egg for my son. And I'm in the next month or so, I'm doing a special needs trust. I'm blessed to be able to provide for him long term, in this 3D world, whatever karmic path he's on. I'm like blessed to be able to help another soul, because who know, who he is on the other side, who knows, the same as me. But, I want to, I don't feel comfortable leaving him in a bad spot if I was to pass away. And then like my mom brought this interesting idea up to me once about kind of the weight of debt. I remember at one point I think I had like 40,000 something left of my graduate loans and I had the money to just pay it off. And I think this was at the time Biden was like saying, well, maybe we'll pay it off for you kind of thing. And I remember my mom was talking to me, said, just pay it off because like just to release the weight, like to not have to think about, to not have that weight on you. And I took a risk. I'm like, I didn't like having to check every day if it was going to get paid off and this and that. I'm like, like the smart move would have been to wait to see, but I was like, I just need this weight off my shoulder. I did incur the debt at the end of the day. There was like a karma there. And I'm like, I just want to be done with it. I never want to have to think about it again. And I paid it off. I was like, I waited and once I paid it off, I could finally, she was right. I could finally breathe. I didn't have, because I always viewed it as that like negative 40 grand on my savings. It's like, yeah, I have money in the bank, but I owe all this money. And especially during COVID, it was like there was not an increase of interest. So it was like I could have let it sit, like try to just let it sit there long. But I'm like, I'm not doing anything with the 40 grand. And although it was like heartbreaking in a way to pay it, I wanted the peace of mind. I think that was her term. You can't put a price on peace of mind. And why I'm saying this is with my son with a special needs trust. It's kind of been a thorn in my psyche for a while. It's been like a thorn in my brain where it's like if I don't care if I die, but I wouldn't want him to be in a tough spot, especially if something happened to my ex-wife. He can't take care of himself. And to not have the special needs trust, all this work, all these zeros I have would just kind of like get wrapped up in things and maybe it gets taken from him or something. I always joke that like I don't fear death, I fear life. Like my punishment, my karma is to keep on living because I death would be a relief in a lot of way. So it's like I'm either gonna live for 100 years or I'm gonna get hit by a bus tomorrow is how I view my life. Like if my karma is fulfilled, I'll be dead tomorrow. But I get the feeling that I have a lot to learn. I have a lot of darkness to reduce, and I've made a big reduction, but I feel like I keep telling myself I want to get back to that person I was in like high school. I was like this really pure spirit. I'm like mostly there. I'm kind of I want to regress back to the innocence and the kind of person I was back then. That I had just pure integrity, like I had a completely pure heart, no malice in me. And I'm like mostly there. I'm like 90% there. And it's like I kind of got off the path at a point. Like I look back, like I didn't have any spiritual practice or study, but I was just like a really good person back then and kind of college as well. And the corporate world, I think, beat out of me, you know, that kind of spiritual nature, that nice person. And I've been like fighting to get back to where I was for years. And I'm like, it's crazy. I'm like really back there now. Like I'm pretty much there. And it's and life's gotten better since I've pushed back. I like the part where it says you may also directly help the temple in your spare time. You should also sacrifice the fruits of your work by contributing a portion of your earnings to help maintain the temple and propagate Krishna consciousness. Yeah, I do believe we have to help our organizations, especially organizations that have helped you achieve something spiritually. We have to support them because they have to keep the lights on. If we don't provide support, they would go away. I talked about this in another video where it's like, I do think there's like a line though where it's like, you shouldn't be giving up 10% of your income. You shouldn't be spending thousands of dollars. I kind of feel like there's a commercialization and spiritual materialism that can happen where it gets out of control. You see like the super churches where there's like fraud, like someone's just making so much money that pastors have helicopters and stuff. It gets kind of like out of control. And I pay $15 a month to for organization. I've paid for retreats, like within reason. I think it's fair. Um, and giving your time is if you don't have the money, time is good. You could help at a local church. You could do, you could give of your time. I think it can be good. So I think we should support, but just like everything in moderation because I kind of find these groups when you're down and out, people aren't going to come save you. And I really learned that with my son, where for many years I was too nice, I was too giving. And I think they say charity starts at home. That line always stuck with me. And I agree with that because it's like I should be making sure my son's taken care of first, fill my cup first. It's like the airline thing where if the oxygen comes down, you're supposed to put it on your own mouth before you help other people. Because if you die, you can't help anyone. So it's like you really do have to take care of yourself first. So I kind of view it as like make sure your life is right financially, especially before giving of your finances or time to other people. And I think that's why I've been successful financially over the last 8 or so years, 10 years, because it's like I started viewing it like that. I don't want to waste too much time on things if my life isn't right. And that's part of the reason too I'm giving up poker and these extra things that have like no value because not only is it wasting money, but it's a time. My friend used to say, poker, it's either poker or laundry. I kind of feel like to make your life better, you have to get focused. I had an old CEO tell me that's once. The CEO used to say, you have a lot of energy, but it needs to be focused like a laser. And that stuck with me because it is true in life where you're kind of too spread out. You really need a laser focus on what put all your energy and what needs to get done to cut through the BS and get things done. And I kind of think with spirituality, often we don't put enough effort in or not enough focused effort in. We're too nebulous. We're trying to help too much too sometimes. And I think my ex-wife used to say too, where like spirituality is like graduate studies, where it's kind of more like self-study. When you're in like a BA program, you go to class and you listen to the lecture and you go home and it's like you're not engaged versus in graduate programs often. You're in more small groups, you're talking in class, you're getting to the deeper parts of thing, and the studying and the lecturing is done yourself. You're expected to read the books. It's more self-study. The teacher is there just to kind of guide you, especially PhD programs. I know people in those as well. It's the same idea. It's like it's more of a self-study program. You're more individual. You have to learn the way that helps you. They're not there to like spoon feed you. And I think spirituality is the same way. You kind of have to like self-study. It's self-guided learning. You have to, I feel like the going to church every Sunday sort of thing works for people, but I think it's the BA program. You have to graduate. You could still do the BA, you could still show up, but you need to do your self-study. I think that's what's kind of been a, catalyst, putting gasoline on the fire for me, is like doing the self-study. And in this area too, it goes on to say about studying Hare Krishna literature. It says, um, hearing the words and reading the writings of a bona fide spiritual master is an essential spiritual practice. So try to set aside time every day to read books. If you have no books, try to get one sent to you, go to library, etc., podcasts, etc. So the study along with the work is important. That's the self-guided. For me, that's how I got into all this. I started calling it like spiritual reads. I'd go sit by the pool with a book, even during the middle of like a work day during my lunch. I'd eat lunch and then go sit and read for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, a spiritual book like daily, like 5, 7 days a week. And you'd be surprised how much you learn quickly. In that reading, I think it also keeps you engaged in that daily practice, especially reading or listening to podcasts. Like I always joke with myself, like, sadhana / spiritual practice should be something that you're doing as much as you can, even during the workday. For me, part of the reason I've stayed work from home is that I can, instead of having headphones on listening to stuff, I can just be in my house and have the podcast going while I'm working, some spiritual podcast or something like that. Because at work, I kind of find, even if I have the headphones on, I feel restricted when I'm trying to do like a daily practice. Because, like, sometimes it disconnects and people are going to hear Ram Dass speaking or something. And I'm, not that I care that much, but even just, I don't like being contained. I kind of want to just be free and just hear that. And I kind of found when I was working in office 5 days a week before COVID, you know, the spiritual practice was really hard to maintain during the workday. It was just, the headphones doesn't work if you have to keep picking up calls constantly. So it's like it kind of keeps getting interrupted, and or if you're like in office, people keep coming to your desk. That was my issue. I don't have a lot of calls at this current job, but that was the issue, was like you people keep coming up to you, desk bombing you. And so like you don't even want to listen to anything but like maybe some music, because you don't want to like get broken away from listening to like the podcast versus, work from home. People can IM you. People aren't gonna like, you can kind of communicate quickly versus having to like stop and talk and this and that. And that's the thing too. I kind of feel like the emotional labor at work with people, you're having to maintain these relationships. For me, I'm more of an introvert, and I do like jobs where I don't mind necessarily some interaction, but what I don't like with work is like where you're like emotionally drained because you're having to carry people emotionally, especially in the workplace. I kind of find a lot of people, they're bringing their problems to work. Like my job, like no one even knows I'm divorced basically, but a lot of people, they're having trouble in their marriage and they're talking about it every day, like bringing everyone down. I don't really like that element of work sometimes, where people are bringing their problems to work, and you have to kind of support people, or in a way, because there's a level of, we're a group, and you're trying to like keep everyone happy, or like, there's social harmony elements. I do like the work from home where you're kind of like your own operator. It's kind of like the spiritual self-study. It's more up to you to get your work done. You don't have to manage other people's emotions anymore, or even just people, bothering you during the day, eating carrots next to you and you're trying to think, or being super loud talking, you're in a call, like trying to get a conference room because you don't even have your own office. for me for work too, I really like my own office. If I'm in a job, I've gotten that over the last 5 years or so, and it really makes a huge difference because you have your own personal space. You can shut a door. Not everyone is talking. You have to hear them as clearly. When you're in these open offices, it's like the worst environment for trying to like even concentrate. I kind of found that like I was forced to work overtime sometimes just because people were so distracting all day. It's really frustrating the workplace in America where it's like people just talk so dang much all day. It's like one of the guys used to joke me and another guy would just be on our headphones all day, like, "Oh, you guys are so loud." Like, but otherwise you're like there for even longer because you're wasting time talking. So I kind of feel like spiritual practice is really hard in America on a daily basis, and why I think the churches have like the 6 a.m. masses and stuff like that to like you can get your spirituality in. It's kind of like a workout before going to work because it's really hard when you get home from work. You just want to eat, doom scroll, take care of family responsibilities, etc. And that's the killer too. It's kind of like the work interferes with the spirituality, but you need some level of work. I think Yogananda said something of like you can't just be if you're just like just a little spiritual type and you don't work, you get weak and fragile. Like it actually doesn't help you that much, and vice versa. If you're working, too much, you don't have time for the spiritual element. I've noticed that I find my best spiritual ideas come from when I'm in the back burner of my mind working, and sometimes vice versa. I'm doing spiritual stuff and I have a great idea for work. So I kind of feel like when their pressure cooker is removed and you're not so connected to it, you're not so wanting an outcome. You're kind of disengaged. You have more space, you have more vastness to consider things because you're not tied to it so much. You're not wanting things so much. So, right livelihood is such a big deal for me just because it's like I don't like jobs where I'm actively screwing people over. I remember once I worked at like a security guard firm and I was always respectful to the guards as much as I could be. Sometimes they were disrespectful to me, but I try because at the end of the day, I come from humble roots. It's like I don't want to get beat up in the parking lot because I've like offended someone, right? It's like men especially, it's like there's still like lines in the sand. I don't care what position you're in. Like if you disrespect another man to a certain point, you might get in a fight over. And I remember I was always respectful of these guys. And one time I was like walking into an overnight Safeway, like 24-hour Safeway, like midnight, 11 p.m. and like a guard in the parking lot was like, "Oh, hey, like how are you doing?" Like it kind of freaked me out for a second because I'm like, "Oh God, like this is my fear right now." Like, but luckily, you know, I've been respectful to everyone, so he just was kind of talking to me like, "Oh, this guy's such an asshole, did this and that," and I'm like, "Yeah," but like that's the thing too with working for these businesses where you're like I'm willing to like, I get it. Like sometimes businesses have to kind of be on the line of immoral, but like I always draw the line with like you're not risking my personal safety because you're such a piece of crap that you're treating everyone around like I'm not getting involved with the negative karma. Like I even remember at that same job near the end, they were like going to screw over this guard on their pay. And I said something like, I think I'd already given my notice or I was close to, and they said something. And I was like, okay, like if the guy starts getting mad, I want to be able to transfer him to like the upper management guy. I don't want to be the one getting in big arguments with this guy. And they're like, oh, the CEO is not going to like that. I'm like, I don't care if the CEO likes it or not. Like, I'm not this is your guys' thing. I don't agree with it, which is fine, but I'm not going to sit here and argue with this guy for you guys because I don't have the power. I don't want to misspeak. And they're like, all right. So like of course the guy got mad. I sent the call to the next guy because the whole idea like kill the messenger, that's kind of what they do to you in corporate sometimes. They use you as like their mouthpiece and the person thinks you have the power, right? Because it's like you're the one telling them no. So when you say like you send them to the boss, I mean you can't do that often. I'd already given my notice or like they I basically already had given my notice, and if I hadn't, I was planning to leave soon either way, so I didn't care if I got in trouble. That's the problem with these jobs. See, sometimes you need to like be like that. You have to pay the bills, kind of thing. But I think that's the balance too. It's kind of like you might have to temporarily take on some unnecessary karma to get the bills paid, but I look at it like it's up to you to get out of that job as like fast as humanly possible. Maybe not even a 2 weeks notice if it's something like that where you're just like taking all like I'm not taking risks for these businesses like because people know where you work. If you're pissing people off on a crazy level and you still have to walk out to the parking lot, someone could be crazy and shoot you. Like people don't think about that in our culture too. We're like, I notice a lot of people just think they can talk to anyone any which way, so there's an element of work too, just for personal protection with the karma. Like you shouldn't be getting involved with things. It's kind of like the bartender too, where they'll cut like somebody off. I think there's laws in place too, where like they don't want you like killing someone because you're drunk driving. There's like they have to have like a reason. I think bartenders have to like cut you off. There's like a reasonable suspicion that you've like drunk too much. I remember one time me and friends in college, we were 21 at like an Olive Garden. We were like drinking so much the manager, like their system triggered like the conversation. They just like checked, you guys aren't driving, right? We're like, no, like, but we're cutting you off. You guys had enough to drink, kind of thing. So it's kind of like, there's that element with work. You have to cut them off at a certain point. It's like you can't you in yourself, you can't allow some business to set you up to fail outside of work. And so I'm looking for a job. I think it's important to go to Glassdoor. It's important to like assess the business as a whole. And my brother was looking at a job, some like dental place, and they like all their clients, they were like screwing people over. It was like bad dental work, and everyone hates them. And like he was smart enough to see that, didn't really want the job, and kind of half interview, but wasn't really trying to get the job because you don't want to be the face of that. You're screwing all these people over, even though it's not you. You're like associated. You're guilty by association. I kind of get that. Like, I never used to get that about reputation, guilty by association. Even if you're a good person, it's like I get it now, where it's like you can't be around something if you don't agree with it. So why a lot of people will quit a job if there's like financial fraud going on. It's like they just abruptly quit because they don't want to be there when the feds come. They want to show that they got away from it, even if it hurts them. And that's the thing with the karma with this job stuff. If it's that wrong, you just have to quit. No job lined up, no notice in a way. You're just like, this is my last day, boom. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that. And you know, I kind of I had my moment with that too, where I remember during COVID, you had to get your shot to go in the office kind of thing. And I remember we're work from home, but they still like you had to fill out this form if you hadn't had your shot. And she basically had to admit if you hadn't had the shot because like they were trying to track things and they kept bothering me about it. Kaiser kept bothering me about it. Like I didn't ever get my shot. And the reason why is my son, I believe, got autism from some chemicals that my ex-wife had taken. So it was kind of like I got that like scared me off to the point where it's kind of like I didn't since I'd seen kind of like injuries from vaccines slash other like quote unquote helpful chemicals. It was like I have a responsibility to take care of my son. Like I was willing to lose the job, you know, over this if I had to. Like I'm not taking the shot. Like I'd rather work at McDonald's than take your shot. Like I'd rather be on the street than take this shot. Because it's like it was more important to me that I'm around long term for my son than to take that. That's like the karmic thing. You have to, and I think I was rewarded for that by the universe. It's like they kind of tested me with that. I'm like, no, under any circumstance, I refuse to take this. And I don't think I would have been strong enough if my son hadn't had essentially an injury from drugs essentially. So it's kind of like I feel like you have to draw that line in the sand with work, and sometimes it might be, yeah, it might get really hard for you. Even that security firm I worked at, it was I quit with no job lined up. It was like a bad economy, like 2000, I think 2009. I think I started that job. It was a bad economy. I quit with no job lined up, and it was my first corporate job, but it was like they were being so ridiculous with how they were treating people and I didn't want and I was right. I remember I left I saw Yelp reviews and they're like they're terrible and they're using people's names. This person in the office is absolutely terrible and I didn't want my name out there for something like that. Like you never know who people are connected to. Like I was mean to one guard or someone sometime, and then of course I needed a job and they like wouldn't give me the job, right? Like you'd be surprised who's connected to who. Sometimes it's like some rich guy's son is a guard and you're mean to them, right? You don't know. And so like I I view it as like that too. I don't want to be involved with the business actively. I don't want my name associated with like problems or like that guy is a jerk and like people talk. Reputation does matter, like and it doesn't. I think Warren Buffett said something like it takes decades to build a reputation, takes minutes to destroy it. I really believe that when it comes to work. It's like people are well connected. The CEO came to me, was like, "Oh, they specifically want you. Are you able to take on the client?" And I said, "Yes." Even though I kind of was on the edge of being able to take it, I know they trust me because I've been working with them since 2019. So it's like that karmic element. They know I do what's best for them. They know I work hard for them. They've seen that over the years that I care about doing the right thing for their business, have that fiduciary responsibility. So that's like that good karma. And that's like nothing's better when you're in a consulting where a client is speaking that highly of you because they have no reason to speak highly of you if you're terrible or just average. So when they're like specifically asking to work with you, it's a huge compliment, right? And so, and I don't really care about the accolades, but it reminds me is like why I don't want that negative karma from work at work, even with like underperformers that I've been involved with. I'm very direct when there's a problem with people. I've been training this guy recently and he just wasn't putting enough effort in. And I kind of had the come to Jesus moment with him too, where it was like, hey man, like you're not picking it up. We're doing training videos. You need to timestamp it. We can't keep going over the same thing over and over. You really have to like make sure you set yourself up. That's the whole point of these videos is to make sure that we don't have to keep covering the same thing. And like I did it in the nicest way possible, but he got the point and he upped his, you know, work. He got better. And it's like the old me would be like, oh, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to say this. And like the new me was like, it's like it is karma to agree. At work, there's a certain point where you have to like, it's hurting everyone, including yourself, not to confront issues